to do this is going to be 4 albums now that you've got planned, and you're using session musicians, but I wasn't sure whether it was saying that you would use different musicians for each record, or you use the same musicians you have now.
Different musicians for each record.
Okay.
You know, each record is very, very different from each other, right? I think what I'm trying to do now that I've kind of found this kind of sense of clarity is for the longest time, and even, you know, and a lot of it was my own doing, but you kind of get branded with the crazy thing, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with talking about bipolar disorder, or like doing interviews when you're high on acid, or, you know, having a hairdo that makes you look like a freak. Like, all those things kind of perpetuate that image, right? And I think, you know, based on having to be sold on some level, having to have a niche of some sort, I can understand, you know, why that ended up going in that direction. But I also think that on reflection, you know, of myself, by myself, I'm starting to come to terms with the fact that maybe a lot of it is a little more easily explained than it appeared. And I think a lot of the reasons why it seems so convoluted is because at the time I did not explain myself with enough clarity based on a number of things, you know, insecurity, or, you know, a lot of things, right? But again, everything's a choice, right? Like, everything I've done has been my choice. So that learning process that I've, unfortunately, on some level, been public about, but, you know, that's the nature of what I do. I mean, I tried to quit doing music and it just didn't work, right?
It's said to quit drugs and music, right?
I can't quit music. I can't.
No.
No, there's no way. So it's like, and, you know, people like, but you're always like, you're talking about, you know, your motivation for doing it, and it's like, doesn't that get taxing? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know any other way. And it's not taxing now. It used to be when I had no idea what I was talking about. But now I do know what I'm talking about. And, you know, if I have to do music, which seems to be the case because that's what I'm predisposed to do as a human being, then I think in a lot of ways, if I have to do interviews, then the best idea is to explain it, right? And so, you know, here it is.
It's a good forum to do it. And,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So Devin Townsend has no secrets anymore.
Oh, I have secrets.
You want to tell them?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, that'll be the over 18s version of the interview.
Oh, I have secrets, though, for sure. Yeah.
Okay,
I really like Enya.
I do too, actually. I'm Irish, you know, so I have to.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
yeah. That watermark changed my life.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So it's had an impact on you.
Yeah.
How do you choose and pick out musicians to cooperate with? Because you write everything alone. You like to work alone.
You know, I've been having this conversation, to sidetrack just a touch, with folks recently about, do you believe in fate or free will? Like, what's your point of view? Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, fate, believing in fate predisposes that you believe in a God of some sort, and that it kind of removes that sense of responsibility from the individual, right? I believe in fate, but I don't believe in God, so to speak. I'm not an atheist. You know, I believe in nature. I believe in the universe, right? But I also believe in the idea of mathematics, and if that's the case, and there was a Big Bang, then everything's predisposed by whatever that singularity was. So your choices that we make, in a weird way, it's all a lesson, right? And I think that, you know, when it comes to musicians, they've just ended up showing up in my life, you know? And for me, the main thing is whether or not I can relate to them as people, you know? And if I can relate to you, if there's something about you that I can participate with on a friendship level, and you're not a slouch on your instrument, then for the most part we're able to find a common ground, right? And you know, like this last key, you know, the drummer is mid-60s.
I read that,
yeah. And I moved up to a very small town and I met him at a blues bar. You know, and I saw him play and he just looked furious. And I was just like, you'd be good for metal. He was like, what are you talking about? And so it was just, you know, we're in each other's lives all of a sudden, right?
It was a chance encounter, wasn't it?
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on your point of view, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't know if I believe in chance, actually, you know? I do believe in personal responsibility, and I do believe in personal accountability, but I think that all plays into that, you know, kind of a mathematical universe, in a way, you know? But again, it's like the idea that we can figure it out at all is like ridiculous, you know? There's no way. There's something very liberating about being a total jackass, right? But at the same time, it's like the things that have happened in my life seem to suggest a synchronicity, right? But that being said, you know, I have people coming up to me saying it's a synchronicity, we're connected. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it's like the idea of being fascinated by conspiracy theories, you know? It's like whether or not there's a synchronicity, whether or not there's a conspiracy, whether or not there's aliens, whatever. How does that affect you? What can you do about it? You can't do anything about it. So the idea is just to find that path that seems to make the most sense for you, do your best to make sure that you as a person are like following whatever path you're supposed to follow, and be honest about whether or not that truly is your path, and then just go for it, you know? And then the things that are supposed to happen, you know, whether or not it is free will, who knows? I don't know. But it just seems to me that the people that have ended up into my life musically, we've seemed to do things that make sense, right? So
yeah, it's worked very well so far, and it's a good point you make, the fact that you have no regrets about what's happened before, and perhaps if it's something that's been predetermined or not, or chance or not.
I don't even know. I see. It's like I hate thinking. I hate religion, right?
Mm.
But I just like thinking of it in terms of like, you know, like a fractal. You know what I mean? Like you've got a math equation, right? Like the Mandelbrot set, right? Like you've got a math equation. It's a little tiny thing that you can go infinitely in any direction. Any direction is infinite, but it's all based on that, and therefore it's determined. But it's infinite, so like any possibility is within it. But all those possibilities are like determined, right? So like the idea of it being like predetermined, like kind of,
well, not necessarily by
a god
in that sense, but
yeah.
predetermined in that, you know,
in a chaos sense.
Yeah.
In a chaos sense, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's infinite. You can go in any direction, but every direction of that infinite, you know, mosaic that you choose to turn is already there. You know, so I guess within that we've got our own choices that we make. So maybe it's both. Maybe it's like fate and free will, right?
Yeah.
You've used a lot of humor and self-parody in your lyrics before. And are we going to see this humor still in your now?
Oh, sure.
For
Of course. I mean, the funniest thing about the whole thing is that I keep thinking that like all these like really, really juvenile self-discoveries that people have discovered all the time, you know, people that are like 10 years older than me laugh at for thinking are profound, I still think they're super important. So I guess that kind of like, the humor is just like, oh, poor me, and it's just like, oh yeah, and then a couple years later you're like, oh really, eh? So I mean, it's like the whole idea of humor is like, you know, the point, I think, in a lot of ways. It's just irony. The whole thing is ridiculous.